Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Terry Rose, longtime Kenosha attorney. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Okay. Tell me, how did your family come to the United States and then ultimately to Kenosha?
Well, it was my great-grandfather who came from Austria with his wife and 3 children, first to Paris, then to London, and then to Chicago. And one of those 3 children was my grandfather, Dr. Rose. And upon graduation from the University of Illinois Medical School, heard that there was Kenosha that needed a doctor. And so he came to Kenosha, bought the building that my office is currently in, and we've been there ever since.
And where is the office?
5529 6th Avenue, downtown Kenosha.
Okay. Now, you are the 3rd generation with a law degree.
Actually, the 4th generation. My grandfather, who had a medical degree and practiced medicine, also had a law degree but never practiced.
And why did he get a law degree then?
Oh, he was an intellectual and thought he ought to know some law, and so he did.
Or he just decided it was a good thing to have?
That's right.
Okay. So then, when was the law firm established?
Well, my dad graduated from Marquette University Law School in 1940 and returned to Kenosha, where he grew up, and began to practice in this same building that his father was practicing medicine. And then that was the beginning. But he was by himself at the time.
Okay. And did he continue as a sole attorney in the firm?
Well, he was in sole practice until 1947, when another attorney joined him, a man named Merlin Cotton, who was in the United States Navy, World War II, and was honorably discharged, and came back to Kenosha and joined my father.
Okay. And when did you join the law firm?
Well, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin Law School in 1967. I spent a year as a law clerk to a federal judge at the U.S. Court of Appeals in Chicago, the 7th Circuit, so in 1968.
Okay. And at the time, what type of law did your father practice?
Well, my dad had primarily a office practice, but he was a general practitioner. He went to court on various kinds of cases, a diverse practice of law. And he particularly enjoyed practicing real estate and contracts, but also went to court when necessary.
So when you get a law degree, do you get a degree in specific areas of law, or is it general law that you
No, every lawyer has the same education. You know, when people go into practice, perhaps they, by choice, decide that they want to specialize in do more transactional type work like real estate or forming corporations or reading contracts, wills, probate. But that's by choice. All the lawyers have fundamentally the same legal education, unlike medicine.
Okay. Are there any parts or types of law areas where you can't just practice as a general lawyer? You need more training or specific education?
Well, we have continuing legal education every year, and in every 2 years you have to have 30 credits. Very few lawyers go on and get a Master's of Law degree, which is given in some specialized field like tax, patent law, or admiralty law.
Okay. And your son then is also in the law firm
Correct.
Today. Okay. And is he then the 3rd generation in the firm?
Correct.
Okay. And is there a difference between the types of law that you practice and your son practice, or you do both these the same?
Well, I think he probably specializes in appeals, criminal and civil appeals, as well as a criminal trial practice. I do more civil cases as well as criminal cases.
Okay. And you mentioned keeping up with the law, that you need to get credits every 2 years. You need to get, not a certification, but you have to prove that you took these classes.
Right. Continuing legal education, it's called.
Now, is this continuing education based on the changes in law, or?
Well, that's why you're supposed to take these courses, is to keep up on the subject matter that you're interested in.
Okay. And is there any other way to keep up with the law?
Well, we get all of the advance sheets from the U.S. Supreme Court, as well as the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, and try to read most of them.
And how do they affect the way you practice law?
Well, you're up to date.
Okay. Can you think of any significant cases in your career that you felt very good about?
Oh, there are just really many, many cases that fall within that category, and I would say every year there are significant cases, but a few come to mind. One time I represented a woman from Colorado who had been stopped in Racine for a minor traffic violation, and she had her children with her. And since she didn't have cash to post for bond for the traffic violation, they put her in jail. But before they put her in jail, she was completely strip searched. And that was one of the very first strip search cases in the United States declaring unconstitutional a strip search for such a minor thing. She was not really to be held on such a minor matter, but if you're going to be incarcerated in jail for something significant, a real crime, strip searching is appropriate, but certainly not in that type of situation.
And you argued that case successfully?
At the Court of Appeals level in Chicago, as well as in the Federal District Court in Milwaukee. There are many other cases. I've handled some demonstration cases early on, dealing with people who wanted to protest the Vietnam War and were barred from protesting at the Library Park downtown. Federal District Court said in Milwaukee that was unconstitutional and ordered the city to allow it. Those are just a few, and there are just many, many more.
Okay. Was there any case regarding marriage law that you argued successfully?
I did. Wisconsin used to have a law which said that if you had been divorced and had children by a prior marriage and you wanted to remarry, you had to apply to a judge for consent to marry and prove that the children were not likely to become a public charge as a result. And Supreme Court of the United States declared that law unconstitutional, upholding the decision of the federal court in Milwaukee.
And did you do a lot of free speech type cases early on?
Many. I did many at that time. Not so many today. Times have changed. And there are the kind of cases I've found in Kenosha are not as prevalent on the issues of free speech, free press, as they are today. The most recent one that I can think of involved a former school board member, now deceased, who was cut off by some rules at the local Board of Education, and we challenged that and upset those rules, and he was able to speak thereafter. I say he's now deceased, though.
Okay. What do you attribute your ability to be a lawyer and argue in front of the court? Do you have any basis in education where you feel like I've learned how to do this and I feel comfortable?
Sure. I spent a lot of time in my dad's law office growing up. I went to Bradford High School, which was downtown, and often would walk over to the office, and I was interested, and just by osmosis, I became very interested in it, and I also took debate forensics from John Davies at Bradford High School. I think one of the finest teachers that I've ever had, and certainly one of the top two. And that also honed my skills in public speaking, debate. The other was Bergen Evans, who was Northwestern University English professor, and I attended Northwestern, and he was my tutor in a senior English honoraries course.
Okay. Over the years of being a lawyer, have you seen a lot of change in the law?
Oh yes, you know, change in the law is an evolutionary thing. So some of the changes that one sees in the law today are perhaps not predictable at the beginning, but become the inevitable consequence of earlier decisions. For example, I say since 9/11, you've seen an erosion of constitutional rights. I think if you look at some of the old cases, long before I was an attorney, there was more sensitivity to the rights of the accused. And many of those things have eroded, and they've eroded on a kind of a case-by-case basis. In other words, the law might still be there, but it is not applied as strictly as it was pre-9/11. People are fearful, and courts recognize that.
Okay. In these arguments, or this evolution of the law, are you finding the law becomes clearer in these adjustments, or becomes less clear?
No, I think it becomes clearly less clear, and because their courts are now looking so much on the particular case. Might be a black letter rule, so to speak, but the application of that to a given set of facts can vary a great deal.
So does this mean that it's becoming more in the chair of the judge in the application than in the actual written law?
Absolutely. I think that statement just hits it right on the head.
So what has changed in the way either cases are argued or how the judges sit on a case? What kind of pressures exist today that maybe didn't exist earlier?
Well, I think the public is more keen to going to the court case that they might be interested in, expressing their opinions, and you see more written about cases in the local newspaper or television or wherever, and that brings a lot of pressure on courts. I can assure you of that. And at a sentencing, for example, in a criminal case, there'll be both sides may have something to say. It's not just the attorneys.
Okay, and how about when the law is changed through legislation? Is there changes or effects today that may not have been there in other years?
Sure. Marcy's law is a very, very good example of that in the criminal law, where adjournments have to be, the person involved in the case, the victim of the crime or whatever, has to be notified of the adjournment. They also have a right to speak, or a representative has a right to speak on behalf of that person, a parent, on behalf of the child, for example, has a right to input at the time of sentencing. I think these things have a substantial effect.
Have you seen more cases going to trial than earlier years?
Yes. One of the reasons why the criminal law has shifted, I think, from more of a motion practice to a trial practice is because of the changes in the application of the criminal law in response to motions filed. as I tell many clients, we're going to have to go to trial on this case. This is not something that's going to be dismissed by the judge. It's up to the jury, and you have to argue your case before the jury. We have a lot of jury trials in Kenosha.
Is that unusual?
In the criminal law, yes. In the civil law, we have fewer cases argued to juries because so many cases today are referred for mediation and are settled.
Okay. Now, mediation was something that was done more frequently in the past, but have people, clients, ideas change about settling this before we go to trial?
Well, mediation has been in existence and used more prevalently in the last 10 to 15 years. Before that, no. But now cases routinely, in substantial civil cases, are referred to a mediator. Most of those settle.
Okay. But are there more cases litigated today?
Not civil cases. There are fewer civil cases litigated.
But in criminal court?
There are more criminal cases litigated than ever before.
Okay, and do you have an idea as to why there are so many more criminal cases?
Well, this society is, in general, what we see every day in society, the instability in society, the rapid increase of crime by young people. Most crimes are committed by teenagers and people in their early 20s. And sort of a reckless disregard of laws in society in general. And when people are charged with violation of laws today in the criminal field, they're charged with they might get charged with 5 different crimes. And some of those might be plea negotiated down to 1 or 2. But that has stimulated really one of the reasons why it's been stimulated more jury trials. There's so many charges that people face, unlike years ago.
Okay. So have there been situations where a lawyer knows their client is guilty, and if they know that, or they know something was done improperly, what does the role of the lawyer change, or what does the lawyer do in a case like that?
Okay. Oh, yeah. This seems to be a dilemma that the public more often thinks about than lawyers. And the client says they're guilty, you may want to plea bargain that case. Maybe they're charged with 5 counts and they plead to 1 or 2 counts, for example. But you don't get many people who are going to come in on a serious matter, say, look, I'm guilty, but I'm going to trial because we'll give it a shot anyway, and we'll change the facts here to my liking. People come in if they want to go to trial with a given set of facts, be they true or not true, and present that to the jury. So you're not going to independently know they're lying. You might have a feeling of that, but you're an advocate. They're there to present their story, their position to a court or jury.
And why do people hire a lawyer?
Well, certainly judges, it makes judges' job a lot easier. Judges would much prefer a represented person than an unrepresented person, somebody who's not experienced in law. They don't really know it. They watch TV. I think an attorney can do all kinds of things for a person in a civil or criminal case that can't do for themselves. I mean, as I say to clients, would you operate on yourself? I mean, theoretically, I suppose you could make an incision and pull the bullet out, but that's not recommended.
So, you have been in practice for how long?
57 years.
57 years. And you've seen a lot over 57 years.
True.
Would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. No, I love being an attorney. I think it's the best profession, best occupation that one could choose.
Does the public or do people have a generally good impression of attorneys?
Well, I
Or is
hope
this-
so. I certainly do.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Well, it's been a pleasure.